The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome into my State of Mind on this Friday evening, at least on an original basis for a broadcast that was recorded yesterday afternoon. This is a trying time on all sorts of levels, right? But one of the things that I have been very concerned about is the emergency status that Governor Raimondo has naturally had given to her by the General Assembly at the beginning of the COVID crisis, but it is, in my humble judgment, long worn out its welcome. And the General Assembly Joint Task Force that moves the Senate and the House together to review her spending on COVID is hardly up to the task. And the General Assembly needs to get back to what is their constitutional authority and bring back the authority that the governor has. It manifests itself in a whole bunch of different ways, and I think you're going to hear some of that with State Representative Anastasia Williams, who sits on that COVID task force, but who is very frustrated with resources for the minority communities. So amidst some challenges with law enforcement and the minority communities and the COVID crisis, we've got a lot to talk about, and we shall when we return here. Dan Yorke State of Mind. Please stay with us. Welcome back to my State of Mind. I remind you that we recorded this program yesterday afternoon, Thursday, and you're seeing it on Friday night. Longtime Representative Anastasia Williams is my guest. She hails, of course, from Providence. I consider her a friend of the show. Sometimes I got to find her, but Zoom handles all issues, and it's a total pleasure to have Anastasia aboard. It has been, unfortunately for America, not only a COVID tension last few months, but a very, 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 very anxious last few weeks. And I know that the timing of her announcement last week covered a lot of different bases. Rep, good to see you. You're well, I trust?
Yes, I am, Dan. It's a pleasure being back with you again.
Yes.
Miss you.
Oh.
We finally got it together. We connected.
Yeah, we got it together. Listen, you got it together the other day with your press conference. It's not single issue, but it's conceptually about what?
It's about everything. It's about survival of the fittest. It's about fairness. It's about justice. It's about the isms that's been plaguing the state of Rhode Island for decades and falling on deaf ears. You know, our state is broken. It's broken for those frontliners, for the mom and pops, but not for the 1%ers. You know, those that are in power, those that have financial means to, go on with business are fine and well. And I don't begrudge any of them, but what makes this state function is a lot of these frontliners and the mom and pops of this state as well.
Okay, so I want to get into some of the tension between law enforcement and the community coming up in a little bit, but elaborate. Talk to me about the frontliners. Talk to me about how COVID is working, or how the battle against it is not in the minority communities.
COVID has affected everyone in the state of Rhode Island. Unfortunately, the resources to combat COVID has not been distributed fairly in the minority communities. In the urban communities, we were left out completely till now. They're starting to trickle in resources to assist. However, we are in like the second, almost third stage of opening up the state, and rightfully so, but one size doesn't fit all. And, you can't do for me unless you talk to me to find out what my needs are. And to assume that everything is going to work the same is not fair. And what I mean by that is, we go and we look at Narragansett, North Kingstown, East Greenwich, Bristol, for those neighboring cities and towns that, need to open up, can open up, should open up. But then you take a look at our side, Broad Street, Providence, Central Falls, Pawtucket, and Cranston Street. And while there are businesses there as well and need to be open, the resources, the information is not being disseminated like it should. We have translation issues that weren't addressed by the administration. To date, still have not been properly addressed. and we're almost out of COVID dollars. And we're still looking for help. We're still looking for resources. We're still looking to flatten that line with the COVID.
Yeah, well, I have no umbrage with your concern. I don't think we're out of money. One of the things that really is driving me crazy is that Governor Raimondo is holding back millions, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of CARES Act money. She's been open about it, but she has been, I almost think, almost belligerent about it in the sense that there is purpose to that first stimulus package for COVID distress, both for businesses and for communities. And she's hedging her bet that there won't be another stimulus, or she's waiting to have confirmed that there'll be another stimulus. And that's when she'll take the money that is prescribed for some of the things you are talking about and put them into the community. I find that to be irresponsible, because if we don't put that money into the community for its express purpose, we may not have a budget that we actually can fix anyway, because we're not going to have tax revenues, we're not going to have healthy people, we're not going to have a productive system to make the budget work. Do you see it the way I do?
Absolutely. You are hitting the ball out of the ballpark. You eloquently said it all correctly, period. And many other people see it. But when you have individuals that are thinking about their interests first and taking care of their interests first, then the other is going to be left and categorized as other. And I'm utilizing those words simply because as a member of that COVID task force, I saw the numbers. So they put out $43 million that they actually spent out. But they have all these wink, 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 the IOUs for, on the high side, $706 million that they have put in, and there's a balance of $358 million. So it's like, really? Come on.
But what are you suggesting is the motive? Their own self-interest means what?
Means, look, my next journey, okay? The help that I'm going to need to get me to wherever that journey leads me to. I'm not going to speculate.
Meaning the governor's political future interest is what you're
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, everybody is thinking about their next. I'm thinking about the current. That we have a problem. We have a problem, and it's life and death problem. We are the designed, or the group, the people that are the numbers that are infected are the highest. We have the hot spots. If you get called to a fire, you go to the fire and you put that fire out. You don't go to the fire and look to see address the houses that are around them. You deal with the fire, and maybe the two properties or whatever are next to it. But you put out the fire. You work with the fire first. Instead, this situation got handled the opposite way. You took care of your peeps.
All right, let me pause there, because I think you're on the right track, have been on the right track. However, I will tell you, I don't think the General Assembly as a body is on the right track on this at all. And I'll talk to the representative about that when we return here on My State of Mind. Don't go away. Stay with us.
Tackling the stories and issues that everyone's talking about. Catch Dan Yorke's State of Mind. Log on to WPRI.com, weeknights at 8.
Back to My State of Mind. State Representative Anastasia Williams from Providence is my guest here. Anastasia, I think your concerns about money being held back, the governor, by the way, admitted her deficiencies. Her chief of staff actually admitted it on broadcast when it comes to Latino community. I'm guessing that you see some of the same issues with the African American community. We'll talk about what the community itself can do to help itself there. But when it comes to the revenue issues and the resources and the like, and the oversight of this, I'm stepping with you right now, and I know your role on the COVID task force, which is, for those who don't know, is a joint Senate House gathering, which has no constitutional authority whatsoever. I am very concerned that the Speaker of the House and the Senate President took a complete powder on this, are playing rope-a-dope to be able to consolidate the ultimate budgetary and whatever authority amongst a few at the very end of this session. And they have more or less given the governor, ironically, in a weak governor state, the most incredible autonomous executive authority I've ever seen. I think the General Assembly has fallen down. What do you think?
I think that's your opinion, and I don't think it's a fair statement, simply because my understanding is the governor in a state of emergency and receiving those resources has the authority to decide to spend the money, unless the General Assembly, both chambers, decide that it's no longer an emergency, and or we vote to remove her privilege, I would say, of doing that. And while I was all for it when our communities weren't getting addressed, you have to have the support of others to make that happen. So you have to give her a chance to see what she's doing. My patience with what she was not doing had ran out. But you have to remember, and rightfully so, there are people that are concerned, but they are also concerned about the retribution they'll be getting. You know, they're on somebody's payroll with regards to the state. So while they're affected and infected in some cases, they're not going to come out and speak as boldly as I would. And I am.
Okay, here's my point. The first 6-7 weeks, look, emergency. Look, we had an emergency, and we had to stop this virus.
We're still in an emergency.
Well, you know, I would question I think there are levels of emergency. We are now in phase 2, inching toward phase 3.
The white community is in phase 2 and almost 3. We're still in phase 1, dealing with the issues. That's what I'm saying. One size doesn't fit all, and people need to understand that she has neglected our communities.
Well, then,
so there's a difference.
But you know, I don't want to get bogged down in semantics, but I think you're speaking to my point. So, for instance, the entire state was under emergency. We're still legislatively under emergency, but it seems to me that her emergency response is not sufficient in the minority communities, and I'm not going to quarrel with you on that. The General Assembly needs to exercise extreme oversight and start redirecting priorities and taking back some of this authority so that the governor executes at least some philosophical and in the street plan that you're speaking about. Right now, your message is clear, your process is muddled, and your authority is non-existent. That's what I'm saying.
No, I understand you, but I'm only one. And, you know, I have the biggest mouth, but they utilize, you know, the divide and conquer, and that's what has been very efficient with her. She has done it, and it's there. It's on the records, you know, so you can't erase that. You know?
But I think the leadership has some responsibility in allowing that to happen. That's my point. I think right now you could rescind most of the aspects of the emergency authority. You could be getting into the nitty gritty so that when you are on an oversight hearing, and by the way, you've done a tremendous job on oversight, MTM Transportation, DCYF, UHIP, you and others on the Democratic side have done very good work. Right now, it's a little bit because it's all rhetoric.
Well, you know, the governor had Senator Jack Reed to come and like kind of cement her authority. You know, she has the right to take care of the resources. I am not up there to decide, you know, what and how they should do. I can make recommendation and suggestion. I can bring the horse to water. I can't force them to drink, you know, and as much as it might be spring water and I'm serving them, they don't want to hear it because they have their own plans for it and they have been doing well by it, but it still doesn't negate the fact that they have neglected a population that needs it and that they benefited from.
All right, well,
because of it.
Yeah, let me pause there. So when we come back, I want to get right into maybe a checklist of a half a dozen things that Anastasia Williams thinks need to be done ASAP. Stay with us on Dan Yorke State of Mind. And welcome back to My State of Mind. State Representative Anastasia Williams is my guest. This conversation has been more COVID triage than anything else. And I think it's important because it's part of what the rep is focused on here. She is a member of the Joint Task Force, which again is the Senate and the House combined into one unit. And, you know, we do have the General Assembly back in business right now, but on a very limited scale. Specifically, Rep, what do you, if the governor said, all right, Anastasia, stop complaining. I'm ready. You want me to do 1, 2, 3 right now? What are they?
The first thing I would want her to do is work with regards to the Policeman's Bill of Rights. We need to address that issue because it's a pandemic going on with regards to police brutality, one-sidedness. The chiefs of police are restricted and or limited. It's almost as a good old white boys candy dish that needs to be washed out and cleaned out and refilled.
Oh,
so I would like for her to.
Is that a COVID issue for you, or
Yeah, it's all a COVID issue because COVID has put light on a lot of things, and that's one of the things that COVID has highlighted.
Okay.
The systemic abuse by police enforcement, law enforcement.
I hear that, and that's its own related but different conversation, important, because that's all we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. But is there something in the community, the virus, that you think is gaping, a gaping hole?
Yeah, well, the resources is huge. We need to have translation for all the different diverse population we have. There's resources for that has not been utilized in the way that it should have been. Resources to assist these mom and pop businesses to get back on their feet, that has not been also realized. The PPEs has still not been distributed into communities and businesses like it has elsewhere. None of these things, the resources to organization that deals on a daily basis with these different population, no type of resources of any kind have been coming in to these places, and it's there.
Yeah, listen, I think this small business thing is right on the money. This is really where I've been with the governor, meaning really speaking out against her plan. I mean, the only credit I can give her is that she's been honest about her holdback of money. Here you have the lieutenant governor. Of course, they don't run together, and they're not in simpatico by any stretch. But he has been just screaming out loud about the need to take $100 million in grants for small businesses who were asked to stop in COVID to resupply them with cash flow and sustain them, and then to get a statewide small interest loan seeded program in there for sane businesses for long-term recovery. That money is prescribed for that very kind of use, and she's holding it back.
She didn't have a problem putting out $100 million to one entity for doing that project at the convention center, and gave them a waiver that not one minority, not one company of color participated in benefiting from that at all. And there were three of them. So imagine $100 million could go a long way, as Lieutenant Governor McKee has indicated. In our community, that would have been ace in the hole. It would not have been enough, but would have been better than what has been provided thus far.
What are small business owners in your neighborhood saying about their survivability right now?
What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Where do we go? Who can help us? They're going around in circles, period. They need the help too. And the information is not being properly disseminated, because the resources is not being given to the entities that can provide these resources to these mom and pop businesses. Open up your restaurant. Well, you only could seat 25 in there now to begin with. What are you going to do? How are you going to restart? The Hispanic Commerce has been instrumental in giving seminars. But how many people are Zooming? How many people? We need like a grassroots. The governor is well aware of how we function and who are the people that can do that work. Yeah. But again, they're not paying us no mind.
I hope people are hearing this point. Listen, the Department of Health director has been rhetorically on the money talking about equity and health equity and all that kind of stuff, but the follow-up and the actual execution hasn't been there when it comes to business sustenance in these communities. And I feel your pain. I do. I don't own a business, and I'm not Black or Latino or in a minority defined, but I hear you and I feel your pain. And I think you got to keep shouting about it, because unless and until there's an infusion of capital to sustain these communities, abide by COVID regulations, but sustain the cash flow while you're abiding by. If you can't do that, then I think you're barking up the wrong tree. And at the end of this, there's going to be more long-term damage than was necessary. You have the.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. The bottom line here, she has flexibility with some of those monies on where they can be directed. Unfortunately for us, all of it except this so-called 358 million has already been directed. And I was kind of questioning whether some of that will be utilized to help plug the hole that we're having in the supplementary budget. But it seems that, things are going to be worked out. But where is that $358 million going to go? I already said it needs to go to our community, every last cent, because, you're going to snatch up another $706 million. I can't wait to see to all of whom it's going to.
All right, we'll leave it there, and we'll follow your efforts here. I'm telling you, I think the legislature needs to get back into full force in order to be able to force the hand that you want to see played. Rep, stay in touch, be well, and we'll continue the conversation on radio and back here on the TV when you want to. Appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here with you again.
I thank State Representative Anastasia Williams for joining us. We'll continue this conversation. I really think that General Assembly has got to get on the ball and fast. Plexiglass or no plexiglass. Thanks for tuning in. Stay with us each and every weeknight here for Dan Yorke's State of Mind. Good night.